everybody, it's Doug here. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back. Yeah, so we just wrapped up playing a little bit of the new Shadows of Brimstone Forbidden Fortress, and now we're about to get into something new. But I wanted to let everybody know that just because I'm doing this doesn't mean I am not going to do more Shadows of Brimstone Forbidden Fortress. I just have 8 gazillion minis and stuff to put together still. I put together many more in the last few days. Just been doing a little bit at a time. We're getting there. But today, and for the next little bit, we're going to be exploring the world of Middara. And I want to thank Succubus Publishing for getting this to me in a timely fashion. I appreciate that. This is something that I did back and was highly interested in. I love, obviously, as you know, by watching my channel, I love storytelling games that I can muck up the rules on and still enjoy. So, what do we have here? Well, I'm getting ready to set up now. There's a couple modes to this game, and I want to talk about that first so that you know what you're looking at and what you're going to see. Well, so the first off there is the crawl mode for Middara, and that is this book here. But we're not going to be doing that. And you can see they're all still for Act 1, an unintentional malum. We're not going to be doing that. If you want to see this, there are some really good playthroughs already in existence. I'll start with Rob's Tabletop, Robert Oren. You can check him out. I always try to think about putting the links in there, but forget all the time. So Robert Oren, Rob's Tabletop, check it out. He also did a painting thing for the minis. The minis are fabulous, and mine are unfortunately not yet painted because I've been putting together miniatures for that other game I mentioned. Yeah, it's been kind of crazy with that one. Anyway, if you want to see that, you can check out Rob's Tabletop World. Check out the painting guide that he did, and then check out the gameplay. Very cool, he did it live. And then also One Stop Co-op Shop. My buddies over there have done another version of the crawl. They're playing it as well. And you can see that there too. But we're not going to do that. We're going to be playing something else. Now, if you want to see a duplicate version of what I'm playing, going to be playing today, but with variants, because, you know, just things change based on our actions and reactions, please go check out Meet Me at the Table. Bernd is doing the same mode that I'm doing. I saw a bunch of people doing crawl mode. He's the only other one I see doing the adventure mode currently. So we're going to be doing the adventure mode, which this big book in front of me, when I say big book, I mean big book, is the adventure mode book for the first act. And just think that this is just the first act when there's easily 600 pages. There's a novel's worth of material in here. It's kind of crazy, but this is what we're gonna play. And I do want to go over some of the rules and set up for this. We have selected our characters. Now our characters, if you look on this other page, it tells you how to use the book, and it also tells you onto the adventure and what characters going to be using, and then where we're going to be starting. So we're going to start with Nightingale, Zeke, Remi, and Rook, which you saw in the introduction if you took time to watch it. But we are going to do just some final wrap-up setup things. I'm going to go over the character, I'm going to go over the story, and then we'll get into some play. Yeah, it's going to be kind of crazy, but you know how it goes. All right, one of the things that I did do already in setup is this part here. When you're setting up the game, you do a combatant loot based on the difficulty level of the game, experience level of the game. And we're just starting. It's the mundane level, and I've already created that deck right here. You can see it's got all the stuff in it that we need for that. So I just want to let you know, I did that off camera. There's no reason to do that. It's just watching me gather cards. But I did want to let you know that that is an important step. It is not in the adventure book. So if you're looking at the adventure book for all the rules, you're going to miss some things. So just keep that in mind, because this is in the actual rule book itself. Yeah. Okay, but we're going to talk about our characters and the story. So right now, I think the best thing to do is talk about the characters, then we'll get on to the story and what that's all about and how we set up. Okay, let's pull out our first character. Okay, here's Zeke. Now, he is I think he's a fighter. So nimble fighter is his passive ability. It says Zeke's cautious nature helps him to adapt to any situation. It says once per turn, Zeke may reroll a dodge roll. So when he's dodging, Conviction's kind of a saving throw stat, and casting is a magic stat. And yes, also other things. We got our presence, lore, agility, perception, and strength right here. You see 2, 2, 4, 6, 4. Those are not bad. I mean, they're all good. And then over here we have our movement, our defense, and our health. So we have 12 health to start the game with. That's Zeke. He is an adventurer. Of course, they all are in this part. Now Now this game also has a bunch of leveling up and all kinds of cool things we could do. It also starts with these special abilities, and this is the one that if you're playing the adventure mode, you're going to start with Zeke. Now, in the crawl mode, you can kind of customize your character in that, but in this one, it wants you to play these certain characters and start them off a certain way. I think as time goes on, the game will become more variable. But we get the ability of Blade Works. It says Martial Level 1. Now, we can exhaust this. That means, right, if you have 2 one-handed weapons, which I'll show you in a moment, he does. That's what that is, 2 one-handed weapons equipped, make an attack. So we can just make an attack. Basically, it means that his weapons are fast and he gets to do extra attacks. And what do you know? He's got 2 one-handed weapons. So here they are. He wields 2 short swords. They're short sword, light. Now that's important too. As you can see that they're one-handed and they're melee, and they both use purple dice. However, there's a couple things to note here as we go down his card. One is we can exhaust this to move diagonally. That's actually very helpful because you cannot move diagonally in the game. You can only move orthogonally. And so when we can do that to move twice if we wanted to. Now, also, if we combo with light weapons, in other words, if we have this and we combo it with another light weapon, we get to do this too. We can exhaust it to reroll one of our combat dice. Now, we also get this finesse ability, which means it turns it into a white die instead of the purple die. So he's better with these 2 weapons, these 2 light weapons. Pretty cool. But he's got other stuff too, other stuff that's going to help. He's got this utility core. It's like a necklace. It has some power. Gives him +1 to his defense. You see that gives him a defense of 10, but it also has a passive ability. At the end of each encounter, gain a random mundane consumable. Those are good items like healing potions, things like that. If you are defeated, flip this card. So if we get defeated, it gets worse for us, right? Anyway, it says conviction upgrade white. So when we make a conviction roll, we can upgrade one of our conviction dice to white. That's important for saving throws. Okay, he's got his bad leather jacket right here. Gives him a no bonuses here, but it does give him these abilities. It gives him +2 to health. So that puts him at a 14. It says when making a dodge roll, this is an exhaust ability, right? When making a dodge roll, you re-roll your dodge roll. So if we fail, we can re-roll it. Then it says, as a passive ability, it says reduce physical damage dealt to you from melee weapons attacks by 2. So he's got extra damage defense there with his leather jacket. And he's got a couple of consumables, throwing knives. These are one-type items. They throw them, and you get to roll purple die for damage. It's not unlike other ones. It doesn't get you don't have to roll to hit or anything like that. It just does damage. And then last but not least, he's got a little vitality juice box. It says you can discard for you and an ally to gain 3 health. And that's basically our first character, Zeke. Remi here is also another martial character. Now, I didn't explain what this is, so I'll do it now. This is your starting stamina points, and that governs your movement. So I can spend 1 stamina to move 6. Note, movement is a one-time, you can only do it once per round, but you can boost your movement by spending extra stamina when you move. You can't break that up, though. So you move, fight, or fight, move, whatever, but you only do 1. Okay, now, she's got wings. She's pretty cool. This is her mini right here, by the way. You can see these minis are really nice. You know, I keep, as I'm putting together all these minis for another game, and they are really nice minis, I just think to myself, you know, for board games and that, these minis are very, very, they're exceptional now and don't need to be assembled. I like that a lot. Anyway, she's got natural flight for 2 of her stamina. This means that they can have a maximum of 5, so you can end up with 5 stamina per turn. It says natural flight. Remi is gifted with wings that allow her to fly. Does make a move. Remi has flight for the duration of this movement. That means that she can avoid big chasms, for example, which you'll see on the board, and other terrain issues that would keep her from being able to move through them. Again, 2 purple dice for conviction and 1 for casting. It seems to be the standard amongst these initial characters. She's got a presence of 3, lore of 2, agility of 6. That's good. She's very agile. Perception of 3 and a strength of 4. And then she has 12, 9, and 6, which is exactly the same. It looks like they're all these guys start out with the exact same stats here. She has her special martial ability. Like Zeke, she has a martial talent to start with. And she has martial level 1. It says passive. your attacks gain +1 physical damage. So she does an automatic point of extra damage every time she hits. And she can exhaust this is when making an attack roll, melee attack roll. If you have a two-handed weapon equipped, you may re-roll any dice in your combat dice pool. Well, guess what? And we'll talk about dice pools later. But guess what? She has a war axe, which is a two-handed weapon, melee weapon. Go figure. It's like the game wanted you to have this stuff, right? Anyway, this war axe has a couple things. One is when you're rolling dice. We'll get into what the dice rolls are as we play. When you roll shields, it gives you +1 physical damage. When you roll, the short swords have a similar ability. I didn't get into that with you. But you can see down here, for every 2 shields, you get 2 physical damage. For every star, you get 1 physical damage. So you do get some damage bonuses. But he only gets, instead of 2 for 2, he gets 1 for 1. A little easier to do damage, or she rather. And this does 2 white dice as opposed to the 1 purple die for the short swords that Zeke has. So that is Remi's weapon, the war axe. Pretty nice, pretty nice. She's only going to be attacking once with it, though. It's just big. Now, she has an occult shirt. This is what it looks like. Gives her +1 movement. That's kind of neat. I like that one a lot. It doesn't give her any other bonuses there, but it does have an exhaust ability to dodge if the attack deals no damage. Unexhaust this card and counterattack. That's pretty cool, right? So if you manage to avoid damage, let's say it skitters off that bralette right there, the weapon, and doesn't do any damage to you, you can turn around and strike back. It's pretty cool. She has an ability core. Basically gives her +1 defense, and it has an exhaust ability to counter. Just counter, right? If she gets attacked, she can counter. She too has 2 throwing knives and a juice box like Zeke, and that is Remi. And here we have the lovely Nightingale Arsen. Again, you can see that she's got 3 stamina. She has the ability of ambitious. It says pre-encounter. Nightingale's commanding personality makes her a natural leader. All other allies gain +1 SP. Nightingale gains +2 SP per encounter. So she can do that once per encounter. It's pretty cool. Okay. And then, here we go, Conviction, she gets 2, too, same thing. She's got a presence of 6, they talk about here, her personality, she's pretty outstanding. She got 3 lore, 5 agility, so she's fast 2, 2 perception, only 2 strength, she's not very strong. She's 12, 9, and 6 like the others. Now, she has a different starting core ability. It is from the Krur, I'm not sure, Krur set of abilities. This one's called Gore Shot. It says career level 1, cast a spell 6, so that means she has to make a spell casting roll of 6 or better. And we'll go over that when it happens. If successful, deal 2 magic damage. You may take 1 irreducible damage to deal additional magic damage equal to your highest level career discipline. Well, so this is her highest level 1, which is level 1, so that's not really effective yet. It gets better as it goes. Still, she can cast a spell at, and do 2 damage. It does not appear to have a range issue. We'll have to look at that. I'm not sure. But even if that's not the case, even if she's not throwing around her spells, she does have this. She has her longsword. It's a one-handed weapon, does a white die. And it says sword, longsword, double. It says combo with light for a orange die. So in other words, you can upgrade the white die to an orange die. It says combo with a sword. Your attack gains +1 physical damage. Now, she doesn't have another sword immediately. She just starts with this. But she does have something that gives her, where is it? This, that gives her the, see it says light there? This magic talisman, which will give her that orange die in melee. Looks like they did that on purpose too. And this also grants her a purple die. So it has a passive. It says casting upgrade to white die. So when she casts that spell, instead of using a purple die, she has a white die. White die has better odds than the purple die. Okay. When making an attack or casting a spell, the target's an opponent, you get to empower it for free. That means you had to get to add this black dice, which is really cool because it's got a lot of shields and books on it to give you bonuses, but it also has this, which means you automatically miss. And if you're doing that while casting a spell, you take damage. If she gets 2 books while holding this, she gets +1 magical damage, and you see here 2 shields gives her +2 physical damage. Just to give you an idea what we're talking about with books and shields, there's an example with everything on it. 2 shields, a star, and a book. And that will help determine the damage. So that's her 2 weapons. She also has, oops, sorry, bump the thing. She has this ability core. This gives her +1 defense, +2 health, and you can exhaust it to dodge this defensive core, rather, not ability core. She's got some MF Fortitude. Discard at any time to gain 1 stamina point. She's got a juice box, and she's got this occult shirt that gives her 0/0+1 movement, and the dodge is the same as the one as Remi has, just has a different picture, and that is Nightingale. And our last character, and you always play these 4 to start in the adventure mode, that's the way it goes. We have Rook Lars. He's got, again, 3 stamina. He's got a grand physique. It's a passive ability. Rook's advancements granted him an unearthly amount of stamina and strength. Rook's unmodified maximum hit points are 14, and he may equip an additional consumable. So he can have multiple consumables equipped. Pretty cool. He's got 2 purple conviction dice and a casting dice. We'll worry about those multiples later. It's not really doesn't come into effect in the beginning of the game like this. Presence 4, lore 5, 1 agility. Very slow, not very perceptive, very strong with a 6, and also has 14. You know the other ones had 12, right? He's got a different ability. He's got the Sanctus starting ability of Mend. It says once per encounter gain, you can flip this over, basically use it to gain 2 health tokens. When these tokens are spent to heal an ally other than yourself, gain 1 SP. So that's pretty cool, and we'll use that, I'm sure, at some point during the game. Now here's something cool about Rook. You see he's got these 2 big hammers. Well, he does have these 2 big hammers, actually. They're right here. See, they both have 2 white dice. They're both one-handed, and they're melee. It says you can exhaust them to empower. That's adding that black die in there. Combo Warhammer. So if you have another Warhammer, and here we go, 2 Warhammers. Go figure. If you have 2 Warhammers equipped, a single Warhammer gains Heavy. Heavy is good and bad. Heavy both slows you down a little bit, but it makes you a little harder to hit. And I'm going to get out a Heavy token. Yeah, I thought there was a token for Heavy, but I guess not. Anyway, maybe there is. I'll find it later if we need it, but we know we have it. I know what the effects are. So, anyway, he also has. Let's go back to his board. He also has this deflection core, which you can see he's wearing some nice sunglasses. They're passive. It says Conviction upgrade white, so we get to upgrade one of our conviction dice to white because of this. It also gives us +1 defense. And it says when making a conviction check, pass a conviction, you can automatically pass 1 test. And then yeah. That's that item right there, and then you'd flip this over and you'd lose that ability, so it's a one-time per adventure type thing. And then he's got a Cuirass. It gives you +1 to your defense. It also says when you are dealt damage, reduce physical damage dealt to you by 2, so it's really effective, the best armor that we have so far. And he's got, of course, he's got a hyper energy HP potion, which an ally within SOI, that's basically I don't remember the exact term, but it's area of influence. It's within 4 of you. Heals 3 and gains 1 SP. And then this one is remove an effect from an ally within SOI. And again, SOI, they have the terms on everything on the back of the rule book. So you can, if you're ever wondering what things are, like I want to tell you what that term is because you use it frequently. SOI means... Oh gosh, it has a very specific. I know exactly what it is. It's your area of influence, sphere of influence. Sorry, your sphere of influence, and that gives you a basically whatever bonus it is in the sphere of influence, like the healing thing. Okay, but then like you also have like these abilities, tokens and everything. They're all here in the back of the book. You get lots of stuff. You also get. Steps for making your attack, all this good stuff. So it's pretty good. Steps for casting a spell, standard actions, standard abilities. There's also cards for that. It also tells you what the effects of terrain are. So it's very, very good. I do have to look up Heavy so I can tell you exactly what it does, but I think you get the concept of it. It slows you down, but also makes it harder for people to knock you around. So in other words, if you have a heavy thing, you can't be pushed very easily, like knocked into something else. But we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. That is it. So that's Rook right there. So I just wanted to go over, there's all these game tags. I just want to go over Heavy with you because I mentioned it more than once now. A figure with this tag reduces movement from currents, effects, and abilities by 1. Figures with Heavy also have a -1 to their movement value and take a -1 penalty to agility. This tag is cumulative and can have its effect occur from more than one source. This means that an adventurer with Heavy on 2 different items will incur -2 movement, etc. But again, effects will also reduce the movement by 1. So again, it's a little harder to knock people over, knock them back, etc. So that's Heavy. Now, let's take a little look at our board right here. I don't know if I have these guys exactly set up correctly yet. We'll do it when we read the story, but I did set up the scenario, the beginning of the scenario. Now this is a story-based thing, so I think this map will change and grow as we move through it. I'm not sure. I haven't seen through it there all the way, but you see we have that deck up there. We also have our initiative cards with the two enemy ones away that I'm pretty sure we need, but we do have these initiative cards, and I'm going to basically shuffle them up, and we're going to see who goes, because this will be set for the entirety of the game, or this game rather, this scenario. So let's see, just cut them one more time. There we go. So who's going to go first? It's going to be Remi. Then it's going to be Nightingale. And that means the two guys are going last, so Rook, and then Zeke will be at the end of the chain there. Okay, that is it. Now there's our setup. You notice that there's this obstacle here that we can move out of the way of ourselves. There is a totem. These totems basically trigger story elements. So there's a blue totem here. As soon as it's in line of sight, which I believe is somewhere in this area, you draw a line of sight from center to center, then it'll trigger. Same with this one. You can see that our exit point of where we got to get to is up here, and there's a treasure in the far corner if we choose to go after a blue treasure. Okay, now it's back to our story. Now, you can see an abridged version of all this, and our first adventure is called Before the Mast. It tells you a lot. Like you can see that I got the character set up for how we're going to play our characters here. And then after we equip them, we would, if there were 4 players, we'd be choosing the players. But there's a huge amount of story involved in this. And I was debating on whether I read it for you, and I guess I should, but it's a lot. I was thinking about just putting it up on camera. You can pause it and read it yourself. I'll start you off. You can continue to read if you want to. It should be big enough to get on screen if you need to do that. Though I don't know if that's true or not. But anyway, it says, Nightingale crept almost silently through the crowd, eyes fixed on her target. There were at least 100 of her fellow students here, thronging about and chatting excitedly in their teams of 4. So basically they build a team of 4. Now this text is a little rough, so I'm pretty far away from it. So I'm going to move closer and read it. I just don't know if you're getting it perfectly in the camera. Okay, here you go. Her victim wasn't watching anything but the cigarette in his fingers. He didn't stand a chance. Air rushed around Nightingale as she jumped, latching onto Zeke's back with both arms like a monkey around a tree. "Zeke!" Her voice came out of somewhere between a squeal and a screech, loud enough that a few nearby students turned to stare. Her friend grunted and spluttered, the cigarette tumbling away from his mouth. "You trying to kill me?" Nightingale dropped to the ground behind him. "You don't need my help for that." She extinguished the still smoldering cigarette with a well-placed step. "You've been here as long as I have, 2 years away from Earth, and you're still poisoning yourself." Zeke only grinned in response. "It also makes you smell terrible," someone said from behind them. They both turned, and Nightingale's eyes widened as she saw her sister, Shayless, standing there. I guess this is Shayless right here over on the other side. We'll take a look at Shayless. Okay. Nightingale was usually thrilled to see her, but today was different. Today, Shayless was one of the proctors on the most important test of their new lives. The Magical Aptitude and Skill Test, or the MAST for short. "Makes me smell terrible," Zeke scoffed. "See, here I was expecting something like, 'It's so good to see you, Zeke,' or maybe, 'How'd you do on your written exams?' You know, friend stuff." "No favoritism today," Shayla said. She sounded stern, but she was grinning at them as she flipped through a few pages on a worn clipboard. "Oh, but look at that. Lucky you. Looks like you two ended up together." "What a surprise," Nightingale smiled and shared a look with Zeke. "Consider that the only luck you get today," Shayless commented quietly. Nightingale looked around, wondering who their other partners would be. Of course, she and Zeke would be in a group together. She knew why Shayless didn't want to broadcast it, though. Other students would be quick to pick up any nepotism. While Nightingale knew each one of the students around them, the really short girl with the multicolored eyes, the kid with the strange goat-like hooves instead of feet, none of them were actually friends. "Each team has 4 people," Zeke said. "Who are our other 2? "Rook, Lars, and Remi Moreti." Shayless frowned at the clipboard for a moment, then shrugged and tucked it away under one arm. "You need me to point them out?" "Nah, we're good," Zeke said. Zeke rested one hand briefly on Nightingale's shoulders, pointing toward the single largest student in the room. "I see Rook there." If you're not ready to get acquainted, I've only got another few teams to assign before I explain everything. Shayless walked away, vanishing effortlessly into the crowd. Guess it makes sense. Rook's got to be the smartest student here and the best fighter in our class, Zeke said. They started walking toward him, Nightingale leaving it to Zeke to clear the path for them. She lowered her voice so the other students nearby couldn't hear her. Sure, Rook makes sense. Remi, though? Isn't her dad some kind of mafioso? Who thought it was a good idea to pair someone like that with royalty? Couldn't make it look like favoritism, I'd bet, so they pick us as a boat anchor to balance out our shared awesomeness, Zeke shrugged. Every team has 4. So long as she doesn't slow us down, we'll be fine. It looks like the other half of their team was already assembled. Rook was easily double the size of Nightingale, with hands like hammers and a beard like a lion. Hey, Zeke, Rook called. They met with a bone-crackling embrace. Remi stood just behind him, arms folded awkwardly in front of her. She looked up, smiling politely, and extended her hand. Hey, I guess we're going for the test. Princess Nightingale Arsen, ma'am? Remi peered at Nightingale through impressive multicolored dreadlocks. Her massive owl-like wings folded behind her, making Remi's small frame look a little bigger. Just Nightingale, she corrected Remi, taking the offered hand. The title gets old quick. You're Remi, right? Yeah. Remi looked past her up to the gigantic Rook, who was still talking with Zeke. I know, I'm probably not the sort of teammate you were hoping for. Nightingale blushed, unable to meet her eyes. Had Remi somehow overheard her talking to Zeke on the way over? She didn't get a chance to respond, because at that moment her sister stepped up to the raised platform at the edge of the hall and started shouting. All right, listen up, everybody. They did. Shayla smiled. Welcome to the magical aptitude and skill test. If any of you have doubts about your ability to complete the mast, the door is right there. She gestured behind them, all towards the towering double doors that led into the castle's main hall. A few stern teachers stood there, their armor polished and their weapons sharp. You'll be required to go through the Arquebus, the Academy's training dungeon. The Arquebus is the real deal. Don't think the force fields of the bellicose cubes make up for stupid mistakes, because they don't. These monsters will kill you if you're not careful. There was a few seconds of silence. Nobody left, and Shayla's expression grew more intense. All right, we're going to walk through the doors behind me into the armory. Each of you is entitled to 1 pack of supplies. Choose wisely. If you get halfway through the test before you realize you didn't bring something important, too bad. She paused, waiting for the statement to sink in. If you have any last questions, ask either me or another proctor before you get into the dungeon. Once the tests start, you'll only get my help if things go very, very wrong. There's Shayla's right there. Yep. She raised her voice, glancing once around the room. For the sake of your grades, you don't want our help. There were no questions. Shayla's turned, hopping off the edge of the platform. Please follow me to the armory. Choose a starting pack depending on the adventurer. So we did this already. I showed you all that stuff. Now we're going to move on. The armory was well stocked, and none of them would go into the dungeon wanting. After selecting their gear, they made their way to an old freight lift that was operated with pulleys and ropes. There was only enough room on the lift for 4 of them, and no pesky safety features like rails. A burly proctor Nightingale recognized as an archery instructor stood just beside the lift. Someone keep a hand on the rope at all times, he warned. If you let go, the fall will kill you. Got it, Rook answered. He was the first to climb aboard, taking hold of the control rope with one gigantic fist. The rest of them followed him on board, and they started down. This is going to be awesome. Nightingale looked down at the firefly lights of the glowstones illuminating the carved stone patterns of the dungeon below. Even if it's a trial dungeon, it's about time we got out of the classroom. Zeke nodded. I just can't wait to graduate. We're so close to becoming real citizens. No more lectures, no more exams. Remi shuffled near the edge of the lift, her wings twitching a little in the slight breeze. Yeah, she said, her voice barely a squeak in the dark. We're going to continue. Yeah, there's a lot of story in this. But by the way, if you want to, there is an abridged version. It's called a Spark Note or something like that. You can check that out, look it up, whatever you want to do to do that. Shayless was waiting at the bottom of the lift in the cavernous room cut from rough stone. Several passages opened away in all directions. Down some of the tunnels, lights were trailing away and voices were echoing as groups set out on their separate paths. "You ready, little sis?" Shayless gestured down a dark hallway. "That one's yours." "I'm ready." Nightingale drew her weapons and raised it enthusiastically. "Nothing down there stands a chance." "I'm sure it doesn't." Shayla smiled and reached out, wrapping one arm around Nightingale in a quick hug. Shayla's turned, meeting each of their eyes slowly. "Take care of each other. Your team shares one grade, so your citizenship depends on it." With a nod, she tugged on the rope, and at once the rickety elevator started to rise. "Good luck." Zeke waved at her as she disappeared. He turned and headed toward the indicated pathway. His expression wilted as he got his first look at what waited for them. Damp stone, thick cobwebs, and the smell of decay. Let's get this over with. They left the first room behind, the sound of squeaking metal pulleys fading into the distance. The stone was thick here, too thick to hear what any of the other groups might be doing. Soon enough, they were left with nothing but their own footsteps and the light of their glowstones. They didn't have far to go before they reached the first of the bellicose cubes. It was a small relic, only about a foot across and set into the stone wall of the cavern. Intricate carvings of cruel magic pulsed with red light as they neared the basin at the front. I always hate using these things, though I guess they've kept me safe in a couple of sparring matches. Remi frowned down at the cube as she approached it. "It's better than getting killed," Rook stated. "I bet Proctor's put them here so that they have time to intervene if we are defeated by monsters, or if we suffer an otherwise fatal fall. Just make sure to attune yourself with it without putting it in your blood. It won't protect you." Tip, party competition. Ideally, each party contains at least one adventurer. We got that. That can cast spells or go into highly armored targets. We can deal with that. Okay. Reminder, restoring. When adventurers restore, they unflip all exhausting cards and remove all damage. Okay, we got that. Okay, so we attuned ourselves to the stone right there. And it says, attuned or not, fighting will still hurt, Zeke added. I broke an arm while learning to use a sword. Guy cheap-shotted me. Rook nodded in agreement. Zeke's right. I broke another student's arms while learning to use a sword. He smiled at Zeke and then got serious. Seriously, though, the cube will let us survive very serious wounds, but it doesn't make us invulnerable. Don't be an idiot. Nightingale winced as she cut her hand along the blade of her weapon, just deep enough for a few drops of blood welled up in her palm. God, I'm sorry, guys. I've been reading too much of this already. A few drops fell from her pale fingers into the bowl. One by one, they struck and boiled away, and the glow of the cube grew much brighter. For just a moment, she felt as though all the blood in her body was being tugged toward the cube. The strange sensation passed. She got out of the way. They all took their turns. They could finally advance into the encroaching gloom. Continue to Masked Day 1, page 7. Here we are, and you can see there's a bunch of things going on. First off, this is the adventure itself, and it says, the damp, cold air of the caves chills you to the bone. As your eyes adjust to the dark, you see the faint outline of a large rock blocking the path up ahead. It looks as if a strong push could send the boulder careening into the pits on either side of it. In any case, it looks like the only way is forward. Now, here's our starting points where we saw, and this is the map that you saw up above that I had out in front of you. You can see it's level 1 mundane. We did the setup, got the tiles there. These are the victory conditions. Now, there's a little device, and you've probably seen it's an old trick, but it'll make the text underneath the red something you can read. And we'll read them as we hit these certain variables. There's a moving rock, and there's also a grading. During this encounter, the master will be graded on how many rounds it took you to finish the encounter. So this is going to give us points as we go into the, I think it affects how the story goes for us. So that's the Masked Day 1, and it continues up in the next scenario. We'll have to continue on, but that is it, guys. We're set up to play, and so in the next episode, we will be getting on with it. We'll be moving our guys and getting through this adventure. We don't see anything too perilous up front, but we know that that's not going to last. It's not the way these games work. So we will be, probably the first turn will probably be just moving and maybe getting into some little more story elements, seeing what happens. Looking forward to that. But guys, thanks so much. I appreciate it. We're all set up, ready to go. And we will see you in the next episode as we play through the adventure series for, well, not the whole thing. Well, I don't know. We'll see, of Middara. So thanks, and I'll talk to you very soon in the next episode. Take care.